is when you think I'm pointed in the right direction of the guy, okay? By just looking at the readings, all right? So just let me know when to stop. Just yell, okay? Anybody want to hazard a guess based on where I'm pointing? What you need to do is you need to see this relative to the power as I move. Okay, where it starts tending towards the 80 mark. Okay, like for example right there. Okay, so he's probably somewhere in that direction. Now, if you want to see whether he really is in that direction, we can prove it to you. Chris, could you get up and walk over there, please? So you can see, as he moves off, that rating that I'm pointing in that direction is going to start dropping. Can you see it's dropping? Because he's moving out of the field of the Yagi. Now the Yagi, although it's directional, has some side lobes to actually receive the RF traffic. So now that he's moved off to a particular location, good Lord, I can't really see where he is. The light is shining in my eyes. Okay, I'm just going to sort of like spot him. Let's see where. Okay, he's looking like he's somewhere in that direction. Oh yeah, okay, I can just see him right now, yeah. So you can see just by pointing the directional antenna and using Moocher Hunter, you can pretty much tell which direction the guy is coming from. Now obviously in some cases you might get a bounced packet, a reflected packet, okay? Typically though, you can get around that. How so? Sprint and drift. Simply plug yourself up from this location, take your laptop, walk to another location, and take a reading from there. And based on the locations, if you take a reading from each location, what you're going to end up with pretty much is, in essence, a triangulation effect. This location, you point there. If you walk over that side, most likely you're going to get a reading on that direction. So pretty much as you walk around, you get more and more triangulation readings, and you can pretty much walk towards accurately where the guy is. Now in actual field trials, we got down to a positional accuracy of about 2 meters, all right? And this was in very, very high density environments. We're talking about basically high density residential environments like condominiums, HDB flats, which for those of you who aren't from Singapore, HDB is like massive public housing where they got like 400 people in a block, that kind of thing, 400 units in a block. And also in office environments down at Shenton Way, i.e. right downtown in the heart of the business district. So this is pretty much a tool that you can use. Of course, you have to use it, again, with a directional antenna so that you know which direction he's coming from. And this tool would allow you to pretty much hunt down anyone who is using your wireless, okay? So it doesn't really matter if they are in a, let's say, for example, in a secured land, they maybe used aircrack to break into your web-protected access point and are using it now. Because in the case, if any of you are using AeroDump right now, you would be able to identify that this access point that we're using is actually web-protected, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to exit out of here, right? And okay, there's nobody else, so I can't show you the page too. But you get my drift. Basically, if you hit the Shift H, okay, and you move the left and right arrow keys, you'll move to basically a next page list of detected stations. All right? So at this point, are there any questions with regards to how we would actually sort of point it around, how we would actually point or use the Moocher Hunter software when we're actually conducting a track? Yes? Okay, the D in the bracket is basically the first frame that was detected, which in the case of a data frame, right, we put there, if a data frame is the first thing that gives away the presence of that station associated to your access point, it will have a D over there. Now, if it was any other frame, it wouldn't have anything. The reason for that is because a data frame would indicate that the guy is actually sending traffic and he's active. If he's just associated but he's not active, he could be basically taking a coffee break, or it could be that you got a stray frame, right, and he's just turned off his computer. So the ones with the Ds are the ones that are actually the more active guys. Okay? Any other questions before I move on? Okay. Oh, all I need is 2 more. Anybody got 2 more laptops? Then we can pretty much go and show you the page 1 and page 2 stuff. It's all right. I'll let it run. Okay. And whoops. Okay. Right now we have that video to show you. I'm doing pretty good on time actually, so I can probably take a lot longer with the video. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you the video of the actual field trial testing that we did with Moocher Hunter. Okay, and bear in mind that this is done in a multi-tenanted residential environment. So there's lots of concrete, there's lots of steel, there's lots of interference with other APs around. But you'll see basically how the thing goes. Okay. Right, so now Chris is about to go out the door, and we're going to take a look just to show you where he's moving off to. So he's currently going to look for a position where he could potentially mooch from, right? So we're just going to go back and close the door so that we don't actually see where he's going to, and then hunt him down. See you, Chris. Our laptop with a highly directional antenna. You can see that I'm actually connected to a wireless card with that external antenna jack. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go and find out where Chris has gone to. Okay? So work with me. See what I'm doing over there is I am actually going to a spot, rotating around on that spot. That's the drift right there, okay? And I'm taking readings, and of course, Moocher Hunter tells me that he's in a particular direction. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm coming towards the camera. That's the sprint. So you can see this is an illustration of the technique. I go to a spot, I take a reading, I identify that he's coming from a particular direction, and then I move to another spot to attempt to get another reading to triangulate which direction he's likely to come from. Seems to be coming from downstairs. Okay, I'm going to go and see whether he actually is downstairs. Most likely he might be hiding in some sort of apartment or something. Looks like he's still below. Aha! We have found someone. There you go. Here's the moocher. So, how far below are we right now? 3/4? Yeah, something like that. Okay. So there you go. Moocher hunted. Okay. So that was just a short illustration as to the technique. So you've seen the interface, you've seen the tool, you've seen the technique. Now, the key thing is really how easy is it to hunt the guy down. For that, principally you have to rely on the user's, what we call the skill level, because you have to understand how to execute that track. You have to use the sprint and drift approach. If you're just going to sit down in one location and just rotate on that location and then say, aha, he's coming from that direction, chances are, in a highly built-up environment like that, you're not going to get very far. In fact, you're probably going to go off in the wrong direction. So you got to actually use a multiple, at least 5 readings. Go to 5 different locations. And don't forget, he's in a 3-dimensional environment. He could be 1 floor up, 1 floor down. So don't forget to point your antenna up or point your antenna down. Okay? You also have to understand or get familiarized with the interface that I showed you just now. The interface is really simple. I mean, we just breeze through it like that. It's not rocket science. Bigger numbers mean better. Smaller numbers mean you're wrong, you're going away from it. Okay? So collectively, when you talk about how you look at the software, interpret the results, use the technique, that's basically your skill level, and how effective a Moocher Hunter will be for you will be how high or how good your skill level is. Now, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, or alluded to earlier, with that exact same setup that you saw in the video, and the same setup that I have over here, we basically were able to identify a moocher on average between 10 to 30 minutes. all right? And this was conducted across both residential and office environments. However, depending on the amount of traffic that he sends out, it can be as little as 5 minutes. And if you're using things like, for example, peer-to-peer file sharing, or even just simple web serving, you'll be surprised the number of frames a simple HTTP GET request will churn out. It really helps you, okay? And of course, we have all the other requirements such as your hardware and so on. So in essence, Moocher Hunter will allow you to hunt down anyone who uses your wireless access point, and anyone can use this. You could be an enterprise, a system administrator running your own wireless networks in your offices or your organizations. You could be a home user and you don't like the idea of your neighbor, mooching your internet access because you paid $100 a month for. So you might want to sort of look at it from both angles, whether or not you're a home user, whether or not you're an enterprise user. Okay. Now, for those of you who are interested, I mean, we do cover this in the certification program that I mentioned earlier, but that's not the focus of what I am talking about today. Now, there is a footnote to this whole thing. Okay, and the footnote is this: law enforcement, when we previewed this to them, they said that, yeah, that's all nice and good. I mean, we can find out sort of who's using the wireless and so on and so forth. But isn't this a little bit obvious when you walk around? It's not exactly covert, is it? The guy sees me coming and he says, okay, what is that guy pointing? It's a man in black or men in blue and, with a badge, man with a badge and gun, and he's pointing that at me. Well, that's pretty obvious. And as a result, it tends to give away the whole game that he's being tracked. So the response that we gave to them was something that we called the Law Enforcement Edition, and basically this added a few other things in, all right, 802.11a support, because by and large, most people tend to use the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. So you'll find very few A cards in the market today, which is why we didn't put that into the basic edition, but we've actually put it into the law enforcement edition because you never know what criminals will do. All right, and we also have other stuff like AP hunting, evidence logging, because they need to do that. However, most people, based on the feedback we've received, have basically said that this, for enterprise and home users, is pretty much sufficient. Okay, so you may want to go back and test it in your environments, whether or not you're a public listed company or whether or not you're running it at home, and basically have a play with it. All right, so like I mentioned up there, the commercial solution is really intended for cops, so I can't talk about it here, but you can always ask me about it offline later on, okay, after this. So at this point, I think we're actually making pretty good time. So I have about 15 minutes left. Anybody want to ask me anything at all about that? Because like I illustrated to you, it's a really, really simple tool to use. The only thing you really need to do is just get an external directional antenna, have a wireless card that accepts external jacks. In fact, you can even put it onto your onboard cards. Your mini PCI Centrinos, for example, they're supported. You just pop the cover off of your wireless card and you put the jack in, and there you go. Anybody has any questions at all? Yes? No?
Hi, I have a question here.
Yes.
So what if I have a wireless card adapter that allow me to change the power dynamically? Like adjust the power low and high? I mean, does it really matter?
Okay, it doesn't really matter. Well, to answer your question in full, based on you were asking me whether you can change the power dynamically. You can't set the power from your user interface, at least not based on the tool that we have. But it doesn't matter, because when you are using that single card and when you are actually doing the track, your card is responsible for assigning what it feels are the relevant signal strengths that for each frame that it receives. As a result, that sort of gauge or that scale that it's using is going to be constant all the way throughout the lifetime of your card. And therefore, when you actually point it, let's say, in this direction, and if you point it in that direction, you can make a very accurate assessment of the difference in signal strength between that direction and the difference between that direction. So it doesn't really matter whether or not you can or can't change your power rating, even if you could, but in this case, it doesn't matter. Oh, okay. In this particular case, we're actually, like I mentioned, using a variety of means to sort of assess whether the traffic is coming from that particular guy. Number one, obviously, when you saw the initial screen about how he's associated with an access point, we're looking at control frames, we're looking at management frames, we're looking at data frames to determine that it's coming from that guy. We're also using something that we call the 2DS flag. Now, if you're